Did you know in the early 1900s, it was widely believed that premature babies were weaklings who were unfit to survive into adulthood? All that would change though, largely due to one man, Martin Cooney. Martin would become one of the very first advocates for premature babies, and he would do it in the most unlikely way. You see, Martin knew if he really wanted to make a difference, then he'd have to change the public's view on premature babies. And what better way of doing so than creating a sideshow attraction, which he called the infantorium. Martin would place the premature babies into a specially designed incubator, inspired by the ones used for chicken eggs, and then charge the general public 25 cents to view them. In 1903, the average cost for the care of one infant at Martin's facility was $15, or $405 today. The care cost of premature babies was expensive, however Martin wouldn't charge the parents a single penny. Instead, he made up the cost of caring for the infants through the entrance fees, which covered not only the care of the infants, but also allowed him to pay for an established doctor, Julius Hess, as well as paying his nurses a good wage. Upon being admitted to Martin's care, infants would all undergo the same routine. The infants were first bathed in lukewarm water, and if they were capable, were given a small dose of brandy. Then ribbons, either pink or blue, were tied around the babies, which allowed the viewer to identify their sex. The infants would be on the show throughout the day in individual incubators, excluding 2 hours for feeding. The preemies were fed breast milk in 3 different ways, depending on the varying abilities of the infants to receive milk. Most were fed by either wet nurses or using bottles. However, some infants were administered breast milk spooned through the nose by Madame Recht, one of Martin's longtime employees. He would also place strict diet restrictions on his wet nurses, and while under his employment, they weren't allowed to smoke, consume foods such as hamburgers, or drink alcohol, as Martin believed doing so would impact the quality of their breast milk. Martin also encouraged his nurses to take the babies out of the incubators and cuddle them in front of audiences. In addition to holding the infants, Madame Recht would show a diamond ring to audience members before sliding it up the baby's arm to show just how tiny they really are. These performances, however, triggered outcry from child protection groups, claiming Martin objectified the infants for their monetary gain. Then in 1897, as Martin was starting his career in the field of neonatology, an anonymous source in the medical journal The Lancet condemned his shows as an unscrupulous way to make money. However, Martin would defend his sideshow, claiming his exhibits were the last resort for many preemies, and that his practice's survival rate was much higher in fact than many hospitals. In 1934, in order to demonstrate the importance and success rates of the incubators, Martin hosted a reunion at the Chicago World Fair for the babies that he and Hess had cared for in 1933, and on July 25, 1934, 41 of the 58 babies, accompanied by their mothers, returned to Coney Island for a homecoming ceremony. Martin Cooney is widely credited with saving as many as 7,000 premature babies and is recognized as the father of early infant care. He's additionally recognized as one of the first pioneers of technology for neonatologists. Martin's dream would become reality by 1950, when incubators were installed in the majority of public hospitals and premature babies were no longer seen as expendable. Rest in peace, Martin Cooney. Make sure to let me know what you guys think in the comments.